The US-Russia talks in Saudi Arabia appear to reverse a long-standing US policy of seeking to isolate Russia, and would likely pave the way for a meeting between US President Donald Trump and his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin. All this as French President Emmanuel Macron convened an emergency session of some European leaders in Paris Monday, seeking to reassert European influence on any future negotiations.
An optimistic take is to say, yeah, sure, the Americans are perfectly welcome to have conduct bilateral diplomacy with whoever they want to, and they always have done. And if you see value in cooperating with the Russians on certain matters, as they have done throughout the course of the war, not always in the forefront, but in the background, continuing to keep diplomacy going, then fine. That's the sort of perhaps glass half full read on what's going on. But I think in particular there will be some very significant alarm in European capitals about what might be discussed with regards to the security of their continent, their home region.
Washington's shift to direct talks with Russia has left both key allies and Ukraine uncomfortable, particularly after US Vice President J.D. Vance's stinging criticism of European democracy.
The threat that I worry the most about vis-a-vis Europe is not Russia, it's not China, it's not any other external actor. And what I worry about is the threat from within, the retreat of Europe from some of its most fundamental values, values shared with the United States of America.
Signaling a major shift in the transatlantic relationship.
The Munich Security Conference clearly showed that we are witnessing tectonic shifts of the order structures and also of the positioning of major powers. The United States really is the big question mark at the moment. If we put together what has been said about the US international role since Donald Trump came into the White House not very long ago, we see that the United States wants to retreat from international organizations, so it is weakening structures of international order. It has questioned international rules, and at the same time it wants to be a player in major difficult situations, and Russia's war on Ukraine is one of those situations that the US has picked to say we will be a key player here to end this war. Now, it doesn't make the situation easier for Ukraine, in my view, because it is very difficult at this moment, first of all, to know exactly where the United States will be going in their positions.
As hopes of the continued close ties, both economic and security, traditionally enjoyed between Europe and the United States, now fade fast, after being confronted by a new reality under the administration of President Donald Trump.
He said that democracy was under threat in Europe and tried, in my view, to redefine the principles of democracy, but in a way that is definitely not the European values consensus. So what we saw was a demonstration of a representative of a US government which is right-wing populist and itself undermining democracy at home and trying to convey that this is happening in Europe as well. So he spoke about freedom of speech, and what he meant was fighting back Russian disinformation. And these ways of turning around narratives, I think, is very dangerous, and which explains why so many very, very prominent politicians very strongly pushed back.
Last week, US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said NATO membership for Ukraine was unrealistic and that Kyiv should largely abandon any hopes of taking back territory lost to Russia during the war, position seen as weakening Ukraine's leverage in any future talks. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy on Monday dismissed the planned talks in Saudi Arabia, reiterating the view that Kyiv should be involved in any discussions about its own future. Speaking in the United Arab Emirates, Zelenskyy said that any negotiations about Ukraine would not be recognized by his government, as the outcome of the Rubio-Lavrov meeting in Riyadh likely to be closely watched for any signals as to how peace in Ukraine might be achieved. Sherwin Bryceby's SABC News, New York.